Greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Wednesday, February 4th. The gathering, the spiritual gathering that we have at Gratefulness Meditation celebrating the first Master Lology's birthday has ended. And I had a wonderful meditation last night, and I woke up and my meditation this morning had some thoughts about everything. I was going to begin this video with Melinda Gates, Bill Gates' wife, ex-wife, talking about these Epstein revelations. And that's coming. I've already started the clips yesterday. Stuff about Trump suing people. But the first thing I want to say, and I talk about this, at the end of the video I say, only spirituality will save this world, which is a line from the second Master Babaji's, one of his books, and it's repeated in the Whispers of the Brighter World. And it's something that I 100%, like if I'm sure about something, it's that. Like in all this big mess, that only spirituality will save this world. And I talk about, there's a great audio that, passed through me, where, I'm being a conduit for these, this information. And it was something about, and I think the video's called, There Is No Political Solution. And I don't know where that is. It's from some months ago. But, I've talked about this all the time in different ways, but that one was more, crystal clear, more, dedicated just to that one idea. But there is no political solution, and you can see politics gets worse and the politicians get worse. And, politics itself is deeply flawed. But the real problem with politics, it's us against them. It's, it's a divisive, my party versus your party, that there's somehow these two opposing forces. And in our political system, it's the liberals who want to change things, want to progress, progressives. And they want to change things. They want to get rid of the old guard, the old rituals, the old, they want to bring in the religion of science and get rid of the religion, the current religion. And the people who want to make America great again, the people who don't want change, and they want to go back to the way it was when they were, younger. They want to recreate what they consider a dream time, time before all this liberal changes. And change and tradition are both important. There are things that are good in tradition and there's things that are good in change. And also that with the liberal being, full out, being just going full out, and conservative being conserve your energy, and, liberal being risk takers, and conservatives being, conservative. Let's be careful. Let's be prudent. Let's think about what we're doing. And, those things really don't exist in our current day politics, but you have these opposing forces. The youth that wants to change things, the youth that's inspirational, the youth that's, idealistic, and wants to get rid of all the stuff. They start realizing how corrupt everything is, how wrong everything is, and how can we behave like that? And they think humans are better than they are. Like these kids getting upset about what's going on in Gaza, or what went on in Gaza, and kids start finding out, college kids, younger people, that how bad adults are acting, and they say, how can you guys be like this? And you start seeing that your parents as pieces of shit who have compromised themselves and sold out, and you think you can do so much better. And then you get beat down by the system and tells you, yeah, this is whatever it is, right? And people who go into politics with idealistic, ideas of whatever it might be, and then they just get corrupted by the system. And so, our system particularly is degraded now, but you can have these oppositional forces that balance each other out and come to the right conclusion. That's something you could have. That's whatever, politically, whatever it is. But, I was thinking about this angry bitch, Megyn Kelly, and Candace Owens going after Erica Kirk and TPUSK. And these things are entertaining, but, there's nothing there at the end of it, right? It's not making the world a better place. Like most of this stuff with the truth community, looking at the elites, or what I call the controllers, and blaming them for everything, and, now blaming the left more because there's more right-wing good truthers, and, these two things, and people always thinking that if they could fix these shitty people that are the real problem, and, we're the heroes and they're the villains, that's a part of the good guy, bad guy mentality we have in our movies, and, there's a hero and there's a villain and these things, and, God's battling it out with Satan, and, in truth, God with a mere thought, not even a thought. And higher developed beings that work for God with mere thoughts because they can think. God can't think. Can eradicate all the evil in the world, all the misguided things, but, that would defeat the whole purpose of a system where individual entities can work their way back to the source and make the right choices, that we're given the option of wrong choices. That's what human beings have, and, any creature has to some extent. We have the ability to choose the wrong thing. We have freedom of choice, and I think everybody gets a sense of that, where that's where the problems come, because people choose to do the wrong thing. And there's a couple of problems here that I want to address, which I see, human problems, which I fully understand because I struggle with them myself. That people know that they're higher developed souls. They know that they're saints. The Christian religion has fucked Christians over, just like every religion fucks people over, by pretending those people are different than you. That somehow Jesus is different than you, and that Jesus was just born to it. He just was God's only son. And which is, again, we're all children of God, so that's just stupid right off the bat. But somehow he's just there. I think the hawk is, I gotta go outside, I think the hawk is here. Okay, so I saw something fly by, but it probably wasn't the hawk. But I went out there, and, there's been a Cooper's hawk that's been, I'm pretty sure it's young because it hasn't killed any of the chickens yet. Or might have killed one of the chickens a couple months ago. I saw it kill a starling, but I went outside. It was eerily quiet, and there wasn't a lot of, my wife feeds these birds out there with chicken feed, which they want anyway. They go in the chicken coop, but she throws stuff out. Not for the starlings, but for the dark-eyed juncos and the native, birds that are here, the cardinals and anyways. So I went out there, and the guineas were sounding the alarm, the guinea fowl that we have. And they went in the chicken coop, and they weren't, the hawk wasn't there, but they were all sitting in the chicken coop. Something like about half the chickens. And then I went in the section of the old barn where the chickens usually hang out. And we recently, put up this plexiglass window, and there was a hawk in there, and it flew towards the window, and then it flew through the barn and out through there's a garage door there. Kind of interesting. I like seeing the hawk, but, don't want them to eat the chickens, but it's whatever. Sometimes it disappears for a few days, but then, comes back. But anyways, so that's what happened with that. But getting back to what I was saying here, which I have to figure out what that was. So I was talking about how, there are saints, there are higher developed souls, and people can at least aspire to be saints, if not Jesus, right? But ultimately, the difference between the Saga system, the masters of the system, who are farther along on their spiritual journey than other previous, religious figures, you're not worshiping them. You're working to reach the goal that they've achieved. That it's something that all of us have in us. We have that potential. And, it's the ultimate of the ultimate. Like, you can be the best pianist, you can be the best basketball player, you can be the best writer, you could be the best comedian, whatever it is. You could be the top of your profession, which is, excellent. You're one out of every, you're the best person. Like, you can be, the most beautiful, the smartest, whatever, the fastest. These things could be achieved. And they're great achievements, but none of them compare to a spiritual evolution and elevation, right? Becoming the best version of yourself, a realized soul. And these shitty religions don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that there's some spiritual goal, and most people don't want to know it themselves. It's not like religions have to work real hard to, convince you that you can't be anything spiritually. Because people are like, oh, good, I don't have to work on that, right? Because it's the hardest thing to do. Because it involves service and sacrifice and doing for others and, all of those things. But it's there, right? Spirituality and your potential, your spiritual potential, and just working on it. I resolved for my own, when I realized, what it took to be the master of the Saga system, or on that level, not necessarily in that position, but, to reach your full potential spiritually. I was like, oh, there's just no way. Like, I understood what I would have to do. And it isn't like it's hard like climbing a mountain hard. It's hard like negating your negative tendencies, your selfish tendencies, your individual tendencies, and committing just to serve and sacrifice. And that's people don't want to do that, right? People are selfish now. We all are. And so we struggle with it. And I understand because I struggle with myself. But, at least work on it somewhat. At least, understand that there's something there and you work on it a little bit. You don't have to, give everything up and, give up your freedom to choose to do the wrong thing because that's what it takes. We have the freedom to choose to do the wrong thing and only one right choice in every situation, which is, the choice of the divine essence inside of us would make. But start cultivating that relationship and then, at least dabble in it, right? And people don't even want to fucking do that. They just want to sit there and look at other people and blame them and blame the left and blame the right. Everybody knows this, right? Everybody fucking knows this. And it's a simple fact. In your family, in your relationship with your wife and or husband, in your work life, as a society, as a country, as a team, any organization where there's a group of people who are working to achieve a goal. You're working to make something or create something, run a business, win a championship, whatever it might be, right? Wherever you're on a team and you have a goal. When you start infighting, when you start to put your energy into fighting with your teammates, with your family members, with your spouse, everything stops. Any kind of progress, everything gets reverted, and you start to implode, right? Your goals disappear from view. If you don't reverse that situation, you're fucked. Like I talked about how I worked for, I was a waiter for a number of years. And one of my managers said, you just need one negative person, and then you have to fire the whole staff, right? When one person starts talking shit about the restaurant, complaining, and just everyone's will gets, everyone starts to get negative towards the place and loses their, this is why I always say, and be grateful, right? The things that I say at the end of the video, only spirituality will save this world, and be grateful are the two keys to all this. Being grateful for whatever God gives you, and also focus on your spiritual evolution, that there's a spiritual goal, and these miseries and difficulties you go through are there to hone you and make you better, and they're there as blessings and not curses. They're not there to thwart your progress. They're obstacles that help you evolve into what you need. They shape you, and you're like being in a forge, being beaten by a hammer and being made into something by divinity. And so these are the things that we need to focus on, right? This idea that these things are good for us, and we need to be grateful for them as we move forward because we're becoming something. But people don't want to change themselves, right? So that's the issue here. Like, people don't want to change. They want to see themselves as perfect, like I'm a complete, whatever. Or at least I'm part of the good guys in the good team. It's just these other guys over here. And that always kills you, kills a society, kills a country, kills a family, when people start looking at everyone else as being the people that have to change, or the other group as the people that have to be changed, or everyone else but you that has to change. And that's what everybody's doing. It's fucking weak, it's cowardly, it's fundamentally dishonest, and that's all the truth community has become. Look at these sheeple over here, look at these politicians, look at these pieces of shit over here, and I'm great, and the people with me are great. It's and it's them that has to change, and we're fucked if they don't change. But we'll just keep on belittling them and mocking them and telling them what the piece of shits they are, and that's always effective. And so that just doesn't work, right? And so I cover it here, and I mock people and I talk about how bad they suck, but I'm not counting on them for anything, like the people who are in the so-called show. Because, they're lower developed people who are, they have to learn their lesson here and then eventually come about that there's a spiritual life, that there has to be something they have to do, that they have to change. But, it's almost everybody, like almost nobody even is just taken, is dabbling in spirituality, dabbling in self-improvement, working to be a better person. I mean, even people who are good people, they don't really, they're not pushing to. I mean, we'd had whole cultures where people were pretty cool, Aboriginal cultures, native cultures, but people weren't reaching up to the next level. That's one of the reasons those cultures were absorbed. They were pretty cool, and they were good with nature, and they had pretty, interesting skill sets, and whatever they had in lives in terms of their, these things, but very primitive. They're primitive, and they weren't reaching up to higher levels of consciousness that all of us possess. And so, that's where we are as a species, and people just don't want it. And so there's no reason to whine about anything, because that's, if there's a punishment, it's coming from the inability to do what you're supposed to do, and to, everybody's supposed to be going forward and evolving and changing and adapting. And, adapting's maybe not the correct word, because that's more of a material thing. But adaptation is, part of like the need of the day, right? Like right now, we have a spiritual solution. We have to change as a species, or we're fucked. Like that's the problem that we have. And it's not about fucking changing other people. Like I said, the people at the top of the system are lower than you. They're lower than most of the people that understand what I'm talking about in these videos, right? Because they're just, they're still struggling with power, and the money and power and things. And many of us have had past lives where we did that and realized that wasn't the goal. So we've had that in our past. And so it's not being famous. It's not being, a king. It's not being, these things. It's something very primitive, first life people, when a soul incarnates for the first time, looks up at these, kings and these people and go, if I was just one of them, and so they aspire for that and eventually achieve it. Have 2 or 3 lives in, 3, 4 lives, 5, whatever. And they realize, hey, this isn't it. And some people get stuck with it. They don't care. They don't want to give it up once they had it. And they just keep on reincarnating as powerful people. Like these people run the controllers, these people. But they're, souls, maybe lost souls that were here to do God's work, and they got compromised, and then they get caught in this trap. But, those people you can expect nothing from, even the ones that were, once higher developed beings that have fallen. Those people are worthless, because they're not, they're not engaged in the divine reason that they're here, that their soul incarnated in the first place. And so, I got some bullshit to show you with Trump suing people and fucking Melinda Gates and some other thing. I can't remember what that is, that I shot yesterday. And I know there's some new Candace Owens thing about some timeline bullshit. I don't know if I'm covering that for Erica Kirk and TPUS gay. But, just keep in mind, whenever I do anything or cover it, it means nothing. It's worthless. There might be some entertainment value. There might be some funny jokes. There's those things. But the key message here that has to be understood, the thing that I believe and the purpose of this channel, is to help remind people that you have a spiritual path and a spiritual goal to get to, and none of this stuff means anything. Maybe you have to watch it just to understand what you need to do moving forward. But none of these people are going to change a demonic system that is, that'll collapse under its own depravity, which is, inevitable, which I talk about all the time. But there's you have a path, right? You have a spiritual path. And each person needs to find that, or, individually at least, but collectively. And without that, there's nothing, right? Without some divine purpose, it's just everyone's spinning their wheels in a shitty material simulation. Our true soul, our true self is spiritual, is an essence, and this simulation then no longer has any positive effect. It just pulls souls in the wrong direction, right? Like if your soul incarnates, and then you add a bunch of baggage that you have to work off in your next life before you can even start evolving, and you just keep on reincarnating and creating these impressions, these samskaras, and becoming farther and farther, grosser and grosser, and the veil of your ability to see the divinity within you and God, be able to connect with God, because you have all this grossness, and you become more and more lost with each succeeding life. Well, that's problematic. Then their system, the simulation, is broken. It's a video game that now distracts everybody from finding, their true path. I'm 62 years old. I've come from good genetics, but my wife and I went to a holistic healer we went to after we got COVID, when COVID decipated my physical body. And, my wife and I are in good physical shape. I'm 60. My wife is a few years younger than me. I'm 61. And, we're in the stage of our life where our genetic flaws, weaknesses in our genetic system, the things that are going to start breaking down in our bodies are starting to break down. The spike protein hasn't helped, and we have some issues because of that. But even if there wasn't that, you get to as you get older, gravity and toxins and environmental issues, and you have a lifespan. I mean, your death is already kind of written. And then there's some early exits that people have. There's exit points. I fell off a zip line when I was a kid, and 14, and I could have died. And there's choice points. Your soul might say, "All right, let's take an early exit here," right? But thankfully, or I don't know, maybe good or bad, I chose not to do that at 14. But we have this time limit, and going into it really becomes about what state you are in when you die. Like now with people's choices and all the environmental toxins and the foods and the bad choices, and that weaken your system, and but it becomes about just preserving what you have. And my wife and I were talking about, we need to start doing yoga and stretching. She went to this acupuncturist. It was a whole thing because like they were just taking my blood, and I've had this before where, my heart was, I've been having irregular heartbeats, and they've been getting worse since I've been going to the, this is the second visit I've gone to this place, right? But I'm talking about this in terms of like, as you get older, you realize that death is there waiting for you. Your body is now no longer, you have these things that happen, and then you just don't recover. Like you start losing the ability to do things, you're in your physical body, and then there's just, it's just a reminder that it's ending, right? It's coming to an end. And, when you're younger, at some point you physically stop growing, but you're developing as a person. You become a parent, you get married, you have a career, you have these things, and you're on your upward swing. And then, it's about retiring, and your kids are, grown, and then all these things start happening, and you're like, well, what's happening to me? Like now I'm going the wrong direction. And then as you realize that, and then there's just these, the trip to the doctor or whatever, medical path you choose is, usually some bad news. Oh, you're losing this and that. It's just, this is setting in, there's things are happening, and these things that you're trying to fight off some of the, the effects of aging, right? But you realize that this is, it's ending. And so what's important to you? Like, what are you going to do? Like, how you're going to go out? What's important? What's the purpose of your life now, right? Like you had these things that you were supposed to achieve, and you either did or you didn't. Your life is a success or a failure in various areas. Not all things are successes. Great career but shitty family. Good family but poverty. Just underachievement, whatever it might be, right? But then it becomes about, well, where am I going now? Is this it? Is this like is there an afterlife? These types of things people start, wondering about that kind of stuff, and it sneaks up on you, and it happens, relatively quickly, and then once it happens, the degradation can be very fast, right? And you see some people age really quickly, and some people it's a slower process, but make no mistake about it, it's there for everyone. All the people who are older know what I'm talking about. You cross 45, 50, and it's just, it's just a, kind of a gaining awareness, like, about the reality of your situation, that, you're not inevitable. There's a time limit, right? There's an expiration date, and you're approaching it quicker and quicker. Some people leave early, die some tragic death, and now, of course, I just did a Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies on my Apocalypse Now channel. Of course, now with the spike protein and the vax and things, there is that element now. People's getting turbo cancer, heart issues, but there's always been accidents and tragedies, and people dying too young and these things. But if you think about your legacy, what you're leaving behind, and there's all the things you enjoyed, and the things that the issues you had, and some of these things have been barriers to your spiritual evolution. some of your proclivities, some of your, whatever they might be, addictions or things like addictions, whatever, that are preventing you from becoming what you could have become in this life. Because, like, people build statues and, you name a building after yourself, and who gives a fuck, right? Like, if you're really realistic about it, who cares? That people, that your face is on a dollar bill or some bullshit like that, right? George Washington, the historical figures. In 1,000 years, no one will know who Abraham Lincoln is and George Washington. These, the ancient statues and this culture. There might, English will disappear as a language. There'll be no thing called America. 2,000 years, 5,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years. There's nothing that, leaving your so-called legacy behind. So your legacy has to be a spiritual one. Like, what did you do to move your soul forward? Did you burden your soul with, bad decisions that you have to pay for in a future life? And that's the majority of people. And if we keep on going in the wrong direction through this process, and people refuse to get it and refuse to rise up to a higher level, this species becomes a failed experiment, right? And it disappears from the simulation. So that's where we are as a people. And so, the choice is there for people to see or not. The information is available. And like I said, there has been saints in the past, saints that we know about, spiritual people that are there who are actively working to form a connection with the divinity within them. People that you might even know, grandparents, people who are inspirational, that seem just to be a cut above. And everybody can choose that. And, I hope that everybody will. And right now it doesn't look like that's going to happen, but, things will hopefully change for the better. But with that in mind, let's get to the other stuff here. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is February 3rd. I'm just going to do a few little clips here, and then tomorrow I'll work on this video stuff more. We're getting our water fixed tomorrow, so it's who knows what's going to go on with all that tomorrow. So there's two videos I saw today. One was Don Lemon's on Jimmy Kimmel's, which is going to be awful. I'll show you that in a moment. But this video popped. So Melinda French Gates is on something called The Wild Card on NPR. This is this NPR lady who interviewed Joe Biden, Joe Magoo, right after he had flipped out and called that guy fat and challenged him to a push-up contest and all that. And she was very calm in talking to Joe Biden, and he lost it on her. Like you could tell he's just like, he was gone mentally. So that was back in 2019. So I remember her from that. Now she has a podcast.
To acknowledge the elephant in the room at this.
The elephant in the room? What elephant is that, Melinda? The elephant in the room. This is that kind of,
moment. Your ex-husband, Bill, is named in the newest tranche of Epstein.
Tranche. He's been tranched.
Files. And there are a new
Look at this dude here.
Alleged details about his past behavior. And I want to give you the opportunity to respond in whatever way you want to.
In whatever way you want to. Any way you want to respond to the fact that your husband brought syphilis into your marital bed. Right? From, an underage girl with Jeffrey Epstein. Tell me exactly what's going on with your mind, Melissa French Gates.
Well, let me say this. I think we're having a reckoning as a society, right?
Exactly. That's it. It's a reckoning. The year of accountability.
No girl should ever be put in the situation that they were put in.
Yeah, that's true, but we're not talking about the girls. We're talking about Bill Master Gates, a guy who is supposed to have been such a generous-hearted person after years of corporate misconduct and taking federal money and breaking promises to the government and creating monopolies and getting sued for it and all the bad shit he did at Microsoft. Somehow he, like the Grinch, his heart grew to be one of the biggest philanthropists, where he was just going to try to make the world a better place and do all kinds of things with medicines and vaccines and wonderful things to reduce the population. We're talking about that guy.
Epstein and whatever was going on with all of the various people around.
Bill Gates has, done more damage than Epstein. I mean, the medical stuff that he's put out there and some of these other things. And so, to make it sound like he's somehow worse because he was part of Epstein thing, he couldn't be much worse, right? It's like a fucking, he's like a Lex Luthor type person on his own without Epstein, right?
Him. No girl. I mean, it's beyond heartbreaking, right? I remember being those ages, those girls were. I remember my daughters being those ages, right?
Those ages, those crazy ages.
So,
do you have some kind of NDA that you can't deal with? Is there an NDA involved here?
It's personally hard whenever those details come up, right? Because brings back memories of some very, very painful times in my marriage, but I have moved on from that.
Okay, you don't move on from syphilis, bitch.
Purposely pushed it away, and I moved on.
Yeah, she's like, fuck you. You just give the answer. Just answer the question honestly.
I'm in a really unexpected, beautiful place in my life. So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me.
Not me. I had nothing to do with it.
Well, and I am so happy
I'm so yes.
to be away from all the muck that was there.
I have to put more words to the muck for context for our listeners.
Boom. Yeah, good. Bring it back. I'm happy you're doing this. I'm happy you're doing this, NPR lady.
The emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that.
Yeah, and I don't want to because, I got an NDA. It could cost me millions.
Alleged behavior. But I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls.
Oh, my God. It's enough with the young girls. I mean, like, this is about what your husband did, like, to you, personally. It's like what he did to these girls, but also to you, and, and just have a fucking human, just one authentic moment, right? But I'm sure there's an NDA there. She's talking around this thing. So I'm sure that the divorce agreements, there is some kind of, NDA associated with it. Okay, speaking of handjob interviews, where the interviewer performs, he gets on his knees and performs like this guy. Remember this guy? Hunter Biden came on his show. And Hunter Biden wrote a book about his crack addiction, which should have led everyone to realize that somebody who's addicted to crack doesn't make good business decisions or good life decisions. And everything in the, on the laptop from hell, as Trump would call it, was true, right? Which, of course, it ended up being true. And now Trump has just been like, hold my beer. So all that shit's forgotten about. But this guy got on his knees and serviced Hunter Biden, because he was a Democrat, and this guy's been, cucked by his, his once manly show, the man show that he was on, where he was, saying things that were offensive, and now he's just gone the opposite direction. And so, that woman should have asked Melinda Gates, not what's your emotion? Who gives a shit? Well, what are the thoughts that you have when you hear this stuff that your husband tried to drug you and give you medication because they thought he might have given you syphilis, right? Or whatever the fuck it is, right? So this guy's having this,
is a longtime TV and digital newsman who on Thursday night was arrested for committing journalism, which is a very serious crime under our current administration.
Yeah, it is.
Joining us now to share all the incredible details, please welcome Don Lemon.
He wore a lemon-colored suit. Give a hug. Tell you guys are huggers. Look, they're giving a standing ovation.
Well, thank you for being here.
Don Lemons is being celebrated. You know, like, it's just so bad. America sucks so bad. Every day I tune into what's going on, and I see people being people. I'm like, you know, we don't deserve anything. I mean, it's amazing we made it this fucking far, right? Without, like, you know, having major collapses. It's just, you know, divine forces keeping this thing afloat for whatever reason, because there's no way, like, this should be, it's, you know, this thing should have cratered years ago.
And I hope you're okay. I hope you're mentally okay after what happened to you. How are you?
I don't know.
You don't know.
No, that's a really that's an honest answer. I don't know.
Yeah, otherwise I'm going to be lying the shit out of you. But right now I don't know because I'm fucking clueless. So let's pursue what I said yesterday. Like, what discernible talent you think Don Lemons has? I mean, Jimmy Kimmel can read jokes. I mean, I guess he can be a little bit funny. Like, Jimmy Kimmel is like, he isn't like, not, you know, all these comedians, they've sold out, right? You know, there are all these late night comedians. They've sold out to the Democratic politics and all this bullshit and the, you know, liberal stuff or whatever it is, right? You know, but, you know, they had some ability to be funny, right? At least to some people, right? Like, it's, you know, you might not find it funny, but somebody does. And so maybe Jimmy Kimmel has other talents. Like, I don't really know of them. Like, he's just, you know, I mean, that would be his one. Like, he's like a little bit funny. And, you know, like, he isn't like wasn't a successful comedian. But Don Lemons, what does he have? Like, absolutely nothing, right? Like, I can't think of anything. I'm not like being just like, oh, I want to shit all over Don Lemons. I don't think he has a discernible talent. Like, he's definitely not funny. Like, he tries to make jokes, but he's horrible at it. He's not likable. He's not interesting. And he has, you know, like zero insight into anything. He comments on things, and it's usually some clueless, you know, just regurgitating opinions of other people that he doesn't even understand, right? So, I mean, like, Donald Trump is good at selling people on himself. Like, he's good at it. Like, you know, he has these talents. Like, these people have talents. Like Hunter Biden, he had talents, right? Like, Hunter Biden was crafty and smart, you know, in various ways. You know, I guess he's a pretty good painter. I mean, some discernible fucking talent, right? Like, Don Lemons doesn't seem to have any of it. Like, he's like the most talentless person, boring.
I mean, I'm okay, but I'm not going to let them steal my joy. But this is very serious. I mean, these are federal criminal charges.
Yeah, and time in prison can change a man, even if it's just one night.
Yeah, well, not yet. Don't get ahead of yourself, Jimmy. It's not prison yet.
So for anyone who...
Not yet. What do you mean? You think it's happening? Yeah, I think he's just scared shitless. He just seems very nervous about it. Like, he's not as celebratory as he would be of the celebrity responses he's getting. Like, I think he thinks that, you know, Trump is like, they're pretty dickish over there. They don't give a fuck. I'm going to get into Trump in a moment. There's something I want to lead with Trump. And we'll get into that in just a second here. You know, him suing two people, an institution and a person. Trump's a piece of shit. But, like, he's, well, here.
Doesn't know, you are not a favorite of Donald Trump's.
No.
Going back to your days at CNN. No. You're not on his top 10 list.
But he says he doesn't know me. He says, oh, I don't know who he is.
He doesn't know who you are, but he doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Okay? And on January 18th, is that correct? You were covering a protest at a church in St. Paul, Minnesota, an anti-ICE protest.
Okay, so I'm all over the fucking place here. I fucked up my videos on the Gratefullness meditation, so I'm having to upload all 3 days on one day. I don't know how I did that, but and I deleted one, so I have to re-upload that. So I had two that I didn't upload. Then I had some confusion with my videos, which doesn't matter. But while I was in the middle of my sentence, or when I was watching this, maybe you guys heard the dogs barking. My wife let me know that the hawk came back, was on our front porch, and then we went for a walk. And anyway, so there's things that happen where, especially when I'm making multiple videos at the same time, which is what's happening now with different channels. And I'm mixing things like the Journey series with the other stuff. I just get all like, you know, I can't keep everything straight. I used to be able to be more, you know, better at being able to keep all these things together when I was younger. But as I get older, of course, and, you know, like I have to leave notes for myself. But here,
Apparently, there's a pastor at the church who's also a local ICE official, which is, I think, just as Jesus would want. And I believe we have some B-roll.
Yeah, that doesn't.
Protesters interrupted the Sunday service, and you followed them in. You interviewed various people in the church.
You know, I mean, you know how I feel about the religion and, you know, religion in general, but, you know, this is just fucking wrong. Like, it's just wrong. Every time I see it, you're like, it's just fucking wrong. You know, and they only did it for attention. This isn't, you know, they can make some excuse. You know, there isn't some concrete evidence this pastor's an ICE agent, and that has nothing to do with the rest of the parishioners, right? Like, they don't know he's an ICE agent, and if they did, you know, that's whatever. That, you know, but and he might not be. They could have confronted the guy separately, or doxed him online, or did whatever they did. But they came into this church, and I bet, like, you know, it's just bullshit anyway, right? This whole thing's performative, and so, you know, this isn't the worst thing that was done, obviously, but it's just, you know, it's a part of the whole. You're just making things worse. Like, you're losing sympathy. You know, you have the upper hand. They're shooting American citizens. Trump's losing his support. And then you do something like this, right? Something stupid. And of course, Don Lemon's a big part of it. You know, the talentless Don Lemon.
And afterward, well, you were arrested. Now, first I want to ask you, is there a difference between whether those protesters had the right to go into a church and whether a credentialed journalist like yourself had the right to...
Okay, so he isn't going to know this, whatever his lawyers tell him. He's only going to have a... We'll watch this one answer this question and move on. The thing is that people are bringing up about January 6th. There was a lot of so-called journalists that went in there. You know, there's that guy from Owen Stroyer, I think his name is, from Alex Jones, who got arrested. And so going in there doesn't mean, you know, and this is what Megyn Kelly said, you can't go to an abortion clinic. You know, people have rights, and you can't violate their rights and call it journalism. And so, again, trespassing isn't such a severe crime as some of these other things. I think Don Lemon thinks he's going to prison, right? I don't know if he is or not, but I think he thinks he is. Like, Trump doesn't follow through on things, and, you know, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with this? But I'm pretty sure Don Lemon is feeling like he's going to prison. And I think his lawyers have told him so, that there's a high risk given how vindictive Trump is and how much this, you know.
Go in and cover them going into the church.
Well, listen, obviously I'm in the middle of this, so I can't say a lot. There's a lot that I cannot say, but what I will say is that I'm not a protester. I went there to be a journalist. I went there to chronicle and document and record what was happening. I was following that one group around, and so that's what I did. I reported on them, and so. But
you were part of a crime breaking in there. You know, I mean, journalists can be complete dicks, right? Where they ask a gotcha questions. You're interviewing the fucking reverend, and you contradict him when you're saying, doesn't this make sense? You know, like you're trying to get him to, like, you know, agree with the fucking protest, and he's clearly not all about it.
There is a difference between a protester and a journalist.
So the next day, Trump reposts something from someone saying that you should be arrested, you should be sentenced in prison for violating the FACE Act. And at this point, are you thinking, oh, I might get arrested?
Well, not until they started, you know, the drip, drip, drip of people starting to talk about it. I think Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi and all those folks talked about it. And here's the interesting thing, though, is that after that, you know, I retained an attorney. Mm-hmm. And the attorney reached out to them and said, basically, I understand that you have an interest because your folks have been talking about it. And so if you are serious about this, then let's do it the right way. He's perfectly willing to self-report it, which means turn yourself in. And so we don't have to go through this whole rigmarole, and never heard back from them.
That's crazy. The same thing your attorney said.
Customary in a situation like this, that someone would be allowed to turn themselves in.
Yeah, people who are accused of much worse things than I am accused of doing, is they are allowed the courtesy. I mean, Donald Trump was allowed the courtesy to turn himself in when he was.
That's right.
He did.
Boom. Yeah. That's ironic. Who gave you that line, Don?
Yeah. And
woo!
Then the DOJ goes around and tries to find, and correct me if I have any of this wrong, some judges to charge you.
Okay, let me move forward here.
No.
Court says that you can. And so that wasn't until the next day. But I tell you how I got it out. I had my Apple Watch on in my phone. And I called my husband. I said, you know, hey, Siri, call Tim. And He was asleep. Went to his voicemail. And then I said, hey Siri, call Abby Lowell, who's my attorney, and went to his voicemail. He was traveling back from someplace. And
Are you doing an Apple plug right now?
finally I got into the front of an
Because Siri sucks, right? I mean, Siri's just underwhelming.
FBI agent's truck. And they had the handcuffs on me. And my bracelet, I had on a bracelet that my husband bought me for our wedding, which was this diamond bracelet, and it kept getting caught. And it was kind of hurting, and they said they'd take it off. And I said, do you mind taking that up to my husband in room blah, 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 blah. And one of the FBI agents said, sure, and took it up, and that's how my husband found out.
Okay, so it wasn't really bad, right? When FBI agents are running your bracelet up to your husband, it's not as bad as you're saying it is. I'm glad I just happened to randomly hit this. I haven't watched this before. I just went through and I'm picking spots in this interview. So I mean, come on, bro.
Otherwise, no one would have known where I was.
Wow.
So what a wonderful FBI agent.
All right. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
47 days of training who are, violating people's due process rights. They are that has been calling in and coming on the show, and it's been going for about 9 hours.
You got a lot of support from your fellow journalists.
Yeah. And I want to thank everybody for all of their support in Washington. So don't piss off the president or he might sue us. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I think there's a real need right now. This is an important time. This is not time for folly. It's not time for for false equivalence and putting people.
Folly? It's not time for folly. It's never time for folly.
On television and on news programs, giving them a platform who come on just to lie. And it's.
Yeah, well, we've seen that over and over again with the left, too. Like, why didn't you talk about Joe Biden or Hunter Biden or any of the things you guys were perpetrating your lies, right? Which created the vacuum that led to the disenchantment with young men who were Charlie Kirk into voting for Trump or whatever, and led to Trump 2.0. Like, you guys totally got this. Plus, if you're going to be that guy that stands up to Trump, which you're not, but if you're going to be that guy, then you can't commit crimes because the guy's vindictive as fuck and he's got a corrupt Department of Justice. And so you can't do stupid shit like you did in the church. And you should ask your lawyer about this, because they probably would have said, don't do this, because, they're looking for a distraction. I mean, like only a moron would walk into this situation. Like only a Don Lemon top tier moron.
I think people are sick of that. Some things are objectively bad, Jimmy, and you don't have to, just because you say something critical of Donald Trump or a Republican, it doesn't mean that you have to go and say something, oh, well, the Democrats or Joe Biden.
Yeah, you do have to say that, because they're also sucky. And that's what I do. And not because I'm doing false equivalence, because I'm honest about that there's no political solution and that both parties are owned by the same people. That's what you should be saying. If you're actually alternative media, you don't bring your CNN bullshit that Trump is the devil and Joe Biden was somehow great, and then you lied about his being, senile, having dementia, Parkinson's, and you lied about the vaccine, and you shamed anti-vaxxers, and you were carrying water for these piece of shit Democrats for years and still are, and that somehow those guys are good, and you guys are good, and Fox News is bad, and CNN is good. That's all that bullshit, right? And you guys were all censoring real journalists, real people who are doing real journalism that aren't even credentialed journalists, right? People are reporting the truth, that you were censoring all of us. And so, come on. You're an absolute joke.
Some things are objectively bad, and I think it's important in this time to point that out.
I'm going to give you a plug, because this is a way you can support independent journalism. Don Lemon, his show, The Don Lemon Show, it's live at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern every weekday on YouTube. That's a lot of work, right?
That's YouTube, yes. YouTube, Twitch, and anywhere you get streaming. It's a lot of work, live every single day.
It's not a lot of work, because if you call what you're doing work. All right. It's Don Lemon's.
Weekday, 2 hours. So like and subscribe to The Don Lemon Show on YouTube. Become a member. Subscriptions are free. Memberships are very reasonable. But seriously, you need to support independent journalists in this time. I think that's going to carry us.
Right.
Yeah, where were you doing that when you were trying to censor us all? When you were on CNN, you worthless piece of shit. All right, here's a... Woo!
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, so that sucked. Don Lemon's was a little bit more articulate and a little bit more clear. I don't know if he takes the same pills that they give to Joe Biden. They gave to Joe Biden. He was better on this. I mean, he still sucked, but he was better here than he normally is. And, telling that story about his diamond bracelet, right? It makes the whole thing just ridiculous. One more thing to add. There are plenty of crimes, and I talked about this with Joe Biden and Donald Trump before. There's all these crimes that are being committed, and nobody cares. People are doing things that are illegal activity, and nobody's focused in on them. There's so many crimes online that happen, and they don't have enough money, time, and it's so hard to catch the online criminals. I mean, all these things, right? And, Donald Trump's first term, remember when they were yelling, lock her up after he won the election, and he said, hey, that played well before the election, and then he admitted that he protected Hillary Clinton. And so Donald Trump wasn't about going after his peers and going after all these types of people, and criminally. But then the 4 years happened with Biden, presidency. And, I don't think Trump understood it was all orchestrated. He was being controlled. And, he's losing his shit, and he's totally going scorched earth. So, Don Lemons, if he did commit a crime, it's highly likely that Trump will pursue it. I mean, you never know with Trump because he gets distracted and move on. But there's no payment. There's no price he has to pay for putting Don Lemon in jail. Like all the bullshit he's doing. I mean, they're killing motherfuckers out there, like American citizens. And, there's gun control stuff. I guess Judge Janine Piero said that she's going to go after lawful gun owners. Something like that. Or they should. I don't know. She's, whatever her fucking deal is. I mean, she's in some kind of position now. And so with all the bad publicity, all the dumb shit, all the weird shit he's done, going after Don Lemons doesn't really come with any cost. And so, it's just like I said, a matter of whether they probably wouldn't go after this normally, but it brings attention to his base who are Christian, most of them who, are upset by what happened. And so it gives him a lot of cover, and, Don Lemons is just an easy passy to go after. So I think Don Lemons is, scared because of all those reasons, and his lawyers might be telling him, it's likely you're going to do some jail time. You're going to do some prison time. And all this independent journalism and fighting the good fight. I mean, Don Lemons will cave and do anything. Like he'll do anything to keep out of jail. We'll see how this all goes. So it could be an interesting story, but, probably not. Okay, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, so this video is not going up to Thursday, and I have a bunch of other stuff to do, and my wife and I go into our alternative medical person today. I'm getting more testing, so that's going to be a real treat. But there were two things I was going to lead with this originally before these other stories broke with Melinda French Gates and Bill Master Gates and, the stuff with Don Lemons on Jimmy Kimmel's. And so this came in like 2 days ago.
President Trump is suing the IRS and Treasury Department in his personal capacity for $10 billion, alleging the IRS failed to take the necessary steps to prevent his tax records from being leaked to the press. In his lawsuit filed yesterday, Mr. Trump and his two sons, Don Jr. and Eric, claimed the agencies caused reputational and financial harm.
So he's suing the federal government. He's suing the federal government, the IRS, taking money from your taxes, right? I mean, what a piece of shit doing that. And he's always been very eager to sue, which makes him a fucking total piece of shit little bitch, right? But then something worse happened. Then 2 days later, he goes, this happened.
President Donald Trump threatened to sue comedian Trevor Noah for this joke he told at the Grammys.
That is a Grammy that every artist wants, almost as much as Trump wants Greenland. Which makes sense. I mean, because Epstein's island is gone, he needs a new one to hang out with Bill Clinton, so...
In a post...
Okay, that's a shitty joke. What an unbelievable shitty joke that is. You could have... I mean, that guy's just so not funny, Trevor Noah.
On Truth Social, Trump wrote, Noah said incorrectly about me.
Let me read the whole thing. The Grammy Awards are the worst, virtually unwatchable. CBS is lucky not to have this garbage litter their airwaves any longer. The host, Trevor Noah, whoever he may be, is almost as bad as Jimmy Kimmel's, as the low-rating Academy Awards. Noah said incorrectly about me that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton spent time in Epstein Island. Wrong. I can't speak for Bill Clinton, but I've never been to Epstein Island nor anywhere close. And until tonight's false and defamatory statement, have never been accused of being there, not even by the fake news media. Noah, a total loser, better get his facts straight and get them straight fast. It looks like I'll be sending my lawyers to sue this poor, pathetic, talentless dope of an MC and suing him for plenty of money. As ask little George Stephanopoulos and others how that all worked out. Also ask CBS, get ready, Noah. I'm going to have fun with you, President Donald J. Trump. What a little cunt he is. What a little bitchy-ass cunt Donald Trump is. Because he's done this for years. And he is the biggest name caller, false. I mean, like all the false shit that he said. And you can't even get into it because he lies about people all the time and slanders them. And, you know, it would be one thing if he was, and I don't believe these kind of lawsuits. I mean, they're bullshit lawsuits, right? You know, and all these things that these people do. If somebody is being bullied in some way or been, you know, their reputations have been completely ruined by false bullshit, you know, that's one thing, and that's why these lawsuits exist. But not when powerful people who, you know, I mean, this guy is such a fucking bully and such a piece of shit. And like I said, he's said all kinds of mean things to people, and then he runs to his lawyer like a little cunt, you know, whenever these things happen. And he's always done this. And, you know, Trevor Noah's a comedian. It's a fucking joke, you little bitch, right? I mean, these are the kind of things that, you know, the guy is, and he is completely owned by Epstein. I mean, he was compromised by Epstein. He was Epsteined. You know, whether he went to the island or not, it makes no difference, right? And, you know, it was a fucking joke, and a bad one. I mean, it's not worth this kind of stuff. But what an absolute little bitch. There's just no, you know, he's just an absolute cunt. You know, he throws all these punches but can't take any, right? Like this is, you know, you like mixing it up, but then run to your lawyers and take your ball and go home like a little bitch. And so just, you know, absolute piece of shit. Okay, today is February 4th. I just did the voiceover for the beginning of this video. A few things left over that I had up here from yesterday. I'm going to look into the Candace Owens thing. I, you know, really don't want to cover her bullshit anymore, but we'll see if there's any, you know, relevant thing there. But they're losing their shit over at the White House over the Epstein stuff, right? So here.
It's you know, they talk about incompetence. I think it's not incompetence. I think it's just pure fraud. These are dishonest people. They're bad people. I think they hate our country. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. But don't let this hide the fact that you have tremendous fraud. And, you know, if we find the fraud in this country, you'll have a balanced budget without even cutting it.
Okay, so you can't find the fraud. You had Elon Musk go in and do all that shit with Doge, with the computer technology, now with AI. I mean, you know, like, it would be very easy to find the fucking fraud, right? Like, you know, this whole thing with Minnesota, is Tim Walz actually going to go to jail? Is this an actual real thing? Why not arrest this motherfucker and all the people involved, right? You know, all this stuff that's happening. I mean, you know, it's not that hard to find fraud because you have, it's a huge government, right? But you have, you know, a level of accountability because you're writing checks to people. You know, and you could just go into it and see all this stuff where the money's going. But yeah, there is overwhelming fraud because everyone's dishonest and, you know, Trump is taking a shit ton of money himself more than anybody else. He's the king of grifters. And they don't give a shit. They don't care about America. They don't care about you and your money and these things. Your tax dollars. They don't care, right? These aren't fucking people that are worried about the future of America and any of these things. They're just grabbing whatever they can. They can always go move somewhere else with their, you know, with their American dollars while they're still valuable.
Anything. You'll literally have a balanced budget. Yeah, please.
From Colombia, are you planning to work with President Petro to fight guerrilla groups and terrorist organizations in Venezuela?
Well, they want me to do that, and we will. We're getting along very well in Venezuela with the leadership.
Somewhere it's going to explode on Caitlin Collins here.
Very well. You know, we took in 50 million barrels of oil. It's right now heading to Houston.
Okay, let's move up here.
Now, about Democrats, some really bad stuff, but about me,
Oh, here, there's Epstein here.
Links to Jeffrey Epstein. Just wondered if you had any reaction to that, since obviously he was.
I didn't know about it, but I really don't know too much about it. I know who he is. It's too bad.
You know who he is. That's all you know about him. Just, I know who he is. I heard of him. The guy you said was a terrific guy. I've known Jeffrey for 15 years. You said that in 2002. Is your mind gone that much, or you're just that much of a lying piece of shit? I heard of him.
Speaking of Epstein, I will say this. A reporter named Wolf and Epstein conspired. This just came out yesterday in the millions of pages of documents, how crazy this is, conspired against me in order to fight like hell to make sure I lose the election. That's the only thing that was mentioned.
That just came out yesterday, like when we released the documents like 2 days before. And yesterday this story broke. This Wolf fucking guy, I don't know who he is. I heard of him. But that fucking guy and Jeffrey Epstein, they decide, hey, let's dump a whole bunch of documents in here so Trump loses the election. But then when the Democrats chose not to leak those documents during the, and not even talk about Epstein, because, they're just incompetent. They suck. But now it's coming out. Right now they're trying to fuck me over. But you guys can see through that, right? You know what kind of upstanding guy I am.
About me. Now, about Democrats, some really bad stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff about the Democrats is true. All the stuff about me is not true. That's how this works. That's how it always works, right, through the history of time. The people who are in power, it's never about them. It's always about their enemies.
But about me, that Wolf, whoever Wolf is, he wrote a couple of books.
He's a book writer, that guy Wolf. He actually might be an actual wolf. I'm not sure. I don't know who he is. I heard of him.
Epstein conspired against me. Did you know that, Mr. Senator?
I did know that.
They conspired against me.
I did know that. Yeah, I did know that. I'm just selling my soul right now because I know it's stupid as shit. But I can't. You put me on the spot, so I have to pretend like I fucking agree with your delusional bullshit you're pushing right now.
So I lose the election, or worse. So that takes care of Epstein as far as Trump is concerned.
That takes care of it. It's like there's no Epstein and Trump. Now that this thing with Wolf is out, I'm sure you guys will all get with it, and there'll be no more questions about Trump because, I like talking about my self in third person when I'm talking about Wolf and Epstein and Trump. Wolf and Epstein and Trump. Wolf and Epstein and Trump. Oh, my.
A lot of Democrats out there that are very much involved with Epstein.
But not me,
But
fucking Wolf.
I'll be honest with you.
Fucking Wolf. I'll be honest with you. I'm a lying piece of shit, grifter, motherfucker, normally. But right now I'm going to tell you the truth.
You got to get back to running the country, too. Millions and millions every week. When Epstein was alive, nobody cared about him.
But after I let him get killed and we murdered him in prison when I was president.
They care about him. But it's really a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican, it's a Democrat
Exactly.
problem.
No Republicans ever took money from a billionaire that's shitty and seedy. Like he was a guy who worked for Mossad, but he only went after Democrats.
The only problem Republicans have is that we have to get back to, number one, running our country, and then number two, very importantly, letting the public know what a great job we're doing.
And number three, I need someone to change my diaper. Like it's just full right now. This whole Epstein thing got me all worked up.
We have the greatest economy in the history of the world. We have $18 trillion being spent.
Gold is like at $5,000 an ounce. Fuck. It was, record high was 2000. Now it's we have 1.5%, 150% increase in inflation since the record high prices under Biden of gold, when we already had inflation under Biden. And so that inflation's kicking in at some point. Precious metals are going up. That means the dollar is being devalued. Gold is a standard, right? The gold standard is what the dollar used to be on. These commodities are standard, right? They have a standard price. And it's the dollar that fluctuates, the value of the dollar. And so now it's fucked. So don't talk about that, you piece of shit. You were owned by Epstein, you fuck.
The record was $3 trillion many years ago, not by us, by another country. I won't say the country. Yeah, please.
Have you been briefed on Savannah Guthrie's mom missing in Arizona?
I think it's terrible.
It's a terrible fucking thing. I can't believe her mom just is missing like that.
Would you commit to more federal agents like helping out on the search?
Sure, I would. I'm going to call her later on. I think it's a terrible thing. I always got along very good with Savannah.
Me and
Very
Savannah, we're pretty tight.
Unusual situation, but we're going to find out. Yeah, what do you want?
Well, as soon as we find out the fraud, we'll locate Savannah Guthrie's mom. You know, with all this technology and spy equipment and cameras and fucking CCTV and, you know, all the other bullshit and the fucking, you know, all the things to do with that. Chat GPT, whatever I call it. Whatever. All that stuff. We're going to locate all the fraud and find Santa Banana Guthrie's mom.
You talked about Democrats who were in there. Elon Musk was also in there, and so was your Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and correspondence that he had with him. Did you read those new files that were published by the Department of Justice?
I didn't. I have a lot of things I'm doing, you know, a lot of things I'm doing. I don't know. You mentioned two names. I'm sure they're fine.
I'm sure they're fine. They're Republicans. They're with me. So they're fine. They those guys, they wouldn't do anything like that. Even though Elon Musk was trying to get on Epstein's island after Epstein was a convicted pedo, and Howard Lutnick is even worse, is compromised worse. You know, I mean, why would I care about pedophiles in my administration? I mean, they're fine. They're totally fine. They're not. Are they Democrats? No? Okay, they're fine. Oh, as long as they're not Democrats. I mean, you know, I'm fine, right? You guys know I'm fine. You know, this guy Wolf. Like, you heard about Wolf. Fucking Wolf, man. That guy fucking, you know. I mean, he made me go back in 2002 and say, I know Jeffrey Epstein for 15 years. It's a terrific guy, and he likes beautiful women just as much as me, except he likes them on the younger side. He loves his social life, that Jeffrey. I barely know the guy. I don't know the fucking guy. Even though I said he was terrific, I said I know him for 15 years. That was just, you know, that was just me blowing fucking smoke. I don't know fucking that. I don't even know. I think Wolf made me say that, right? He hypnotized me, and I fucking had to say that shit.
I'm sure they're fine. Otherwise, it would have been major headlines.
A lot of women who are survivors of Epstein's are unhappy with those redactions that came out. Some of them, entire witness interviews are totally blacked out. Do you think that they should be more transparent?
The fact that they thought they released too much. You know, I heard that, and you tell me something else.
Hey, those victims. You can't make those fucking victims happy. Those fucking whiny victims. I mean, you know, are they Democrats? And they're guilty.
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Really, you know, now that
it is because you say so, because you know you're compromised by Epstein. You really think it's time that we move on from Epstein? You think it's time that it's just better for us? There's nothing. You don't care. It doesn't have anything to do with you. You're doing it for our sake.
Nothing came out about me other than there was a conspiracy against me.
There was by this guy Wolfie, fucking Wolfie, man. He wrote books. That guy, Wolfie, I don't know who he is, but, you know, he's a book writer and a conspiracy guy, and he made a conspiracy. Try to embarrass me. Like, you know, I just knew Jeffrey Epstein for like 20 years and came to my club regularly. I was hobnobbing with them. But, I don't know him now. Now I can barely remember it.
By Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
What would you say to people
like
who feel like they haven't gotten
healthcare,
justice, Mr. President?
something that people care about. Yeah, what did you say? Go ahead.
What would you say to the survivors who feel like they
You're so bad. This is where he gets in tax them when they won't let it go.
The worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10
Fuck. You don't smile like the girls at Epstein Island, dude. They were always fucking smiling, those girls. I wanted you to be more like an Epstein girl.
10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile in your face.
Holy fuck.
You know why? You know why you're not smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth. And you're...
because the people, the indication of people who tell the truth is that they smile. I mean, smiles themselves are never lies. Like, you can't fake smile. You can't pretend you're smiling. People who are flim-flam, man, and grifters, they never smile. Grifters, they don't have no charisma. They don't smile. They have fucking very somber faces. And they're grifting. They're telling lies. And that's, but when you're telling the truth, you just naturally smile. And that's how you can tell. Like, if somebody's smiling, they're telling the truth.
You're a very dishonest organization, and they should be ashamed of you. Okay, go ahead.
Who should be ashamed of you?
You mentioned health care. And the bill that was just passed does not include your health care savings account. So this is a question for you and maybe for...
He's losing his shit. What a piece of shit.
Mr. Speaker as well.
I'm so proud of the health care savings accounts because it's going to happen. And hopefully...
I'm so proud of something we haven't even really thought about and really have no plan about and really haven't done anything about.
Instead of insurance, and I hope this happens, and I hope you guys can do it, let the insurance companies not do quite as well. You know, they're going up 15, 16, 17, 100%. Think of it. The money should be paid directly to the people. You know.
So apparently, Karoline Levitt, it says here, Levitt goes scorched earth on left-wing reporter and fire exchange. Fuck, this is 32 minutes long. I'll watch a little bit here, and then I'll have to find it if it doesn't happen. Hopefully it happens right off the bat.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody.
It doesn't.
A packed room today. Thank you
You can tell that she's telling the truth because she's smiling.
all for coming. President Trump is making America affordable again.
Okay, fuck this. All right, let me see if I can find the scorched earth part here. So I don't know what they're saying scorched earth is. She gets pissed off here and then pissed off again later.
Look, I think that we do not believe that individuals who have been given the privilege of holding a top secret clearance should be illegally leaking that classified information, and I know the American people agree with that. And I think it's a basic tenet of journalistic integrity not to publish information that could directly endanger the operational security or the brave men and women who are serving this country in uniform. And
So why are you having so many fucking leaks, bro?
putting themselves in harm's way to protect not just the people of this administration, but all of you in the press and all of their fellow Americans as well.
They're just protecting you. You're protecting you by stomping on other countries and taking their shit. They're protecting you from poverty and your lifestyle.
Thank you, Karoline. I wanted to get the White House reaction to Iranian state TV broadcasting an implicit threat to the president's life. It was images of the assassination attempt.
Okay, fuck this thing too.
Options remain on the table for the president.
Netanyahu encouraged.
That's right. Do you have any update on when that might be? And is
clear to Democrats across this country, elected officials who are using their platforms to encourage violence against federal law enforcement officers, who are encouraging left-wing agitators to...
These fucking left-wingers. This is what I say at the beginning of the video. Yeah, the left-right fucking bullshit.
Just keep rolling, but he was speaking facetiously.
And then one more
Sure.
on the labor secretary. She's under.
They are trying to remove people like reporters in this room who will actually talk about these individuals. This stops inciting the harassment and illegal obstruction of law enforcement in his state. All ICE and federal law enforcement are trying to do are remove people like this
These guys.
off of the streets of Governor Walz's city in Minneapolis and of his state in Minnesota. If you look at some of the individuals in this photo, these are all illegal alien criminals who came into our country under the previous
And they're just trying to get rid of these guys.
percent, and that's according to the Congressional Budget Office.
20 million Americans in recent weeks have seen their health care costs soar. Can he assure them that if
Do this just as he did with the pharmaceutical companies that they were but in states across the country are essentially, they've referred to ICE agents who, again, are brave men and women. And I would encourage everyone in this room, and I would encourage Governor Walz and other Democrats who are demeaning law enforcement to sit down and have a cup of coffee with an ICE agent.
It's just exactly, because, you watch them melt. Like when you talk to an ICE agent and they start having coffee and watch them melt.
Border Patrol agent. These are great, patriotic men and women.
They're fucking patriots. That's why they have to cover their faces, because if you'd be blinded by how much patriotism comes out of their face when you look at them.
Who have families, who put on the uniform every day and are following our nation's immigration laws at the direction of their bosses and again, at the direction of the law. They are simply trying to enforce the law. And the Democrat Party has demeaned these individuals.
They demean them. They're demeaning them. Look.
Are you saying that the president finds the idea of canceling elections funny?
Andrew, were you in the room? No, you weren't. I was in the room. I heard
This must be the fire exchange.
conversation, and only someone like you would take that so seriously and pose it as a question.
Exactly.
That way.
Why would you take anything so fucking seriously?
Second,
Caroline,
Thank you, Caroline. Senator Elizabeth Warren said that the president called her earlier this week to discuss caps on credit card interest.
The goal states that convince of that the president continues to closely monitor, but also keep all of his
All
options.
right, so they're losing their shit over there. That's just, I watched this longer than we should have. she's just I mean, once they unleashed Erica J. Kirk, this crazy bitch just, Erica Kirk stole her shine for crazy Barbie bitch, right? Erica Kirk just fucking, Stop this crazy Barbie bitch. Okay, so fucking Candace Owens.
All right, you guys, happy Tuesday. A lot to uncover today. First and foremost, we have a lot of alibis that were given to us about September 10th, where people were when they got the news. And I have to say, these alibis are beginning to crumble like Building 7 on 9/11. We're going to talk about that too, Building 7.
Are you going to break that story that was fucking broken by so many truthers years and years ago? You're going to break that story now, Candace? You're going to get in on it? Now it's fucking legitimate? So many years late, like late to the fucking party, Candace late to the party, Owens. This is what sucks about her and the smugness here, and the divisiveness that I was talking about at the beginning of the video. But if you understand that what happened with 9/11, and there's a lot of truthers that came in after that, and don't realize the deluge of videos, how much information was out about this for those people who are aware of it. Those of you who are aware of it, and then people get woken up by other things, and they think that's the biggest thing. But since the 9/11 thing was completely, just a bullshit story. I made videos on it, and I redid those videos on Apocalypse Now if you're interested in that. I tried to recreate the stuff about the nuclear bomb, the mini nuke, which seems to me be the most likely reasonable solution to this, or, antidote to the bullshit story. But when they get away with something like that, they're going to get away with everything. And she, will come around and say, we got to make these feds answer these questions and do their job. Like she's, like she's that retarded, right? She just sucks that bad. So then, she would be totally different and her show would be different. And the dumb fucks watching it would be different because you'd have to be black-pilled. You'd have to believe that there's no solution to the system. That the only good thing would be the systemic collapse. And then once you're in that state, you're not all bubbly and happy, and you're not all, hey, look at me, and I'm breaking the story. And when I get there, the truth comes out. The truth has already been out, Candace, and you're not going to bring anything but, your own personal ego and your desire to be seen by everybody and your suckiness, right?
Very briefly. Also...
Very briefly, because this thing with Erica Kirk is so much more important. Like, fuck. All right, so I'm going to look at the Erica Kirk thing. Hopefully this is all I'm going to show you. She just sucks so bad. She is the newest cancer to the truth community. So here's what she's saying about 9/11.
Edition of what we were told, okay? The Muggle edition goes like this. On September 11th, 2001, some super de-duper evil Muslims, known to most of us now as Israelis, hijacked some planes and drove them into the Pentagon, flew them into the Pentagon building, also the Twin Towers, and then Building 7 kind of got really emotional seeing his friends get hit and went ahead and just collapsed itself, right? By the way, I should mention that over at the Pentagon, that plane...
So, where were you? And this is fine. It's great when people realize this at any stage, right? But, this is where putting the time in matters. And not that it would matter for her because she's just a piece of shit, everybody look at me person, right? Replacing people who were, had genuine feelings about being lied to by, the powers that be. But a person, if she knew this, when did you know this? When you were back in Trump this summer, when his fake bullshit assassination attempt happened? It was so obviously fake in WWE. And where were you then? When you were Charlie Kirk, were shackled up and sheckling for Israel and sheckling for Trump, or getting shekels to shill for them. And so this is what I'm talking about. There has to be some atonement, accountability, because you were a public figure for a long time, and now you're saying this. So did you know all along, but didn't want to say it because it would hurt your street cred, your Republican cred, your Christian cred, your right-wing cred, these types of things. When did you know about this? Just now, between the time that you got Trump elected, since Charlie Kirk's dead, now you're finding all these things out, right?
It was also very unique. It apparently had no wings when it just dove into the Pentagon. Some people said they heard a missile, but we won't ask questions. We're not here to debate those conspiracies. We were told that this was executed by the Saudis. They had hijacked the plane. How did?
Okay. But we now know it's Egyptian planes, right? But so, this is where she just absolutely sucks because, if it's been so many years since that happened, 24 years now, 25 years or 24. It'll be 25 in September. And this thing happened the day after, day before. Charlie Kirk's thing happened the day before, all this stuff and, all these clowns. If that is one of the biggest things, 2 wars were fought over that, 3 wars. Multiple things. The collapse of Libya, the collapse of now Syria so many years later, the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. And so all the things that happened, taking out Gaddafi, and then all the other things that went along with it, all the changes to the security at the airport, more martial law, naked body scanners, all that bullshit that went on, right? And that all just disappeared. Like, they're not angry anymore. There's no more Al-Qaeda anymore. They disappeared. ISIS, they're all cool. They're all chill with America now. There are no people trying to do plane shit. There's no shoe bomber or underwear bomber. There's no any of that shit, right? And so, and I covered that stuff when it was happening. So many of us did. And we're years before this. And so we know that, we know more than her and all these other people. She's just, she's not a real truther, but, any of these people, because we've been here for a while. We've been doing this for years. I've had this channel since 2007, and I knew about this stuff in 2005. And so, there's no fixing this. So her coverage would be completely different because whatever you say here doesn't make a difference, right? Like, I make it clear it should be light. It shouldn't be like this is some, the stress level she puts into all this stuff. And so I don't know if there's anything more here. She's going to get into Erica Kirk, her shitty alibis. I'll take a look at that, and hopefully it's not worth showing. But, she's just a cancer on the truth community, like all these people are. Tucker Carlson, they're the replacements to real legitimate truthers, and they're sucking up all the oxygen. They get millions of views, and they've brought the dumb fucks with them, right? So, the clueless dumb fucks. So that's where we're at here.
That was getting away with these super duper evil crimes.
Look at her laugh.
I'll remind you of that video very quickly.
Look at this smug look. Look at her things. How great she feels. Like, I'm so great. I'm so great. Look at me. I'm so great. I'm discovering these things. I'm showing you guys the truth that's been out there now for 20 years, right?
Sport being found.
Donna, when these buildings came crashing down on Tuesday, they sent debris showering in several blocks in every direction. And it was in one of those areas a couple of blocks away from the World Trade Center site, apparently where that passport was found. The FBI announcing that it has found the passport of one of the hijackers who was on board one of those 2 planes that hit the Twin Towers on Tuesday morning.
So she's just taking things that were, people who no longer have disappeared 10 years ago used to cover this, and how much of these videos, there was so much 9/11 videos. It kind of created YouTube in various ways. It was like probably a good portion of what YouTube was about for a long time. And YouTube used to recommend these videos like crazy. There's good ones and bad ones, and then, it sort of dissipated. Pizzagate came in, and that was a whole new wave of people that came in with that, and then these other things, right? And she was not a part of any of that, right? Like, she was, doing her bullshit stuff, whatever it was. And then, I don't know when she became famous. It's kind of recently. And now she's, again, I don't mind Tucker Carlson and her doing this. It's a good thing. If they did it with a sense of, yeah, we're fucking newbies. We're coming to the party late, right? There's lots of people that were better than us and know more than us. We're fucking amateurs, right? You're an amateur. And, but they're not like that. They're like trying to divulge these things to their audience like, hey, we're truth tellers, right? Like, this is what I'm talking about.
I was young. But for those of you that were not young and were grown adults, did you just accept that? I was a kid. That's my excuse, okay? I was in middle school.
Okay, so when did you not accept it? Like 2 weeks ago? When Tucker Carlson started talking about when did you realize this? Because we've been here for a while. Like, and then, lots of people. Like, millions and millions of us knew about this, early on, early 2000s, certainly the mid 2000s, most of us, that came in during that wave. And then we've watched every event since, and it's changed. There's a big event that brought you in. Some people it's COVID. Some people it's Pizzagate. Some people it's the economic collapse, right? These other things that happen. And, and once you... So they're fixing our hydrant. You guys who've been following my show recently, we have these hydrants outside that are, where they keep water from, the water's kept low. They're like spigots for our, to use water in the pastures or for animals and these things. And you can use them during the winter because they're below the freezing line, right? But one of them, they got the hydrant out, but there seems to be a leak somewhere else, and they're digging that up. They're going to cap that off, and then we can have water turned back on permanently. And the other hydrants that seem to be connected to that one are both working, so hopefully that whole thing. Anyways, that is whatever it is. So what I was saying is, what woke you up. Like, what event. And like I said, some people it's COVID. Like some people, and like Candace said, she was young. That's fine. Like if you were young and, not everyone's going to be ready for this. I was, in my 30s at this point, wherever I was. So, and I was aware of these things, this type of mentality, because my brother was one of the old school truthers, and I was kind of born to it. Like as a young kid, I found a book about how the Civil War was not about slavery at all. It was about economics, and I read like a whole book, and I did a report on it. And I wondered what my teacher thought. I was like 10 years old or whatever, like 8, 9 years old. I found this adult book, and I was reading like at a high, I had a high. I was reading at a 12th grade level or something when I was a little kid. So, but this it's something that it's there for each person. Some people just don't have it in them. Like, it's not for them. They just and they can still be good people, and they can even be spiritual people, or they can, they can have other levels of truth seeking, but they're just not into finding. They don't care about being lied to, and they don't care about these things. It's just who they are. And then there are a lot of people who they're just assed out. They're completely depleted. Their life has kicked the shit out of them, and they just have nothing. And they're automatons, they're NPCs and sheeple. But Candace Owens is now bringing this stuff up, and I don't. Like I said, I would have been happy with this had she not been such a piece of shit about Trump and Charlie Kirk, and she's still lying to her people about Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk was a shackled up piece of shit. And when 9/11's fake, and the rest of these things, I mean, that's, that was the big one. Like, that was the big thing. Like, it was so much bigger than these other things. It involved wars. It changed everything. Now, COVID was pretty big. Like, that affected the world as well. In terms of body count, I mean, how many people died from COVID? Like 6 million, something like that. I mean, 7, whatever it is. I mean, so it's a substantial, it had a different effect economically, and now everyone's got this fucking spike protein and shit, and the vax and all that stuff. But, when you realize that they're lying to you, you go through these stages. And she would be at stage 1, right? And, and I mean, stage 2, I don't know. And like, there's multiple stages of dealing with it. But then you get to a point where you realize that there's nothing that can save the system, and it shouldn't be saved. And then you have to think about some other, well, then what do we do? And it would be connect to God at a deeper level. But you can't be a Catholic, like I said in my last video, and you just converted to Catholicism and their sex scandals, and just how bad that is as a fucking religion, and all the fucking crimes that religion was involved in, and all the religions were involved in, all the bullshit. Like, you can't, be that and be a good truther. The religion is probably the worst thing, because it affects your relationship with God, which turns you into a worse person, and then you get degraded because you don't have a good spiritual path, and you're disconnected from your spiritual side. You don't have a relationship with God and your soul inside of you, and so you're just you're retarded, you're stunted, you don't have any ability to evolve. So like, her coming to this thing isn't because she's trying to expose the truth about anything. It's because she's trying to get people to look at her and watch her, and she's just histrionic in her big expressions and her need for attention, right?
Those of you that were not in middle school, did you just accept this? Those of you that had families, did you go watch the news and go, no, that makes sense. Yeah, the debris just from, we could not even find human remains, but the debris just fell and unfortunately flew away out the window. He just like threw his passport. I have so
No,
many-
and it shows you the lies that they were telling, and they always tell. Because they know most people won't fucking question it. Like it's a fucking, they probably, I mean, they have to be laughing, the people that put this stuff out, when they see it on the news, right? Remember there was a woman in England, she was talking about Building 7 just went down, and behind her was Building 7, right? Like it was still there. Like she called it before it fell, right? Like there's all these things. There's so many little details and things that are there.
The questions about that, but again, we're not here to relitigate 9/11.
Well, why aren't you? Because I mean, you do deep dives and everything, but that which would change everything. Because who gives a shit about Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk's one piece of shit, right? Like it's just because you right wing dopes think he was something that he wasn't, and his he was cratering anyway, and now what he has created is in the dumps and it's never coming back up, right? So there's that.
We know how we felt. We all gathered around those Super Bowl.
Okay, so there's that bullshit. So she talks about Erica Kirk. Let me go take a look at that, and hopefully I can avoid covering that because it's probably not very substantive. Okay, so just we'll do the very beginning here, and I'm not going to listen to the rest. There's, it's just her bullshit. Let's make sure we get to the beginning of this thing. Here, let's start here. She's shilling for some
/ Candace. Considering their aims being potentially resurrecting Nimrod.
What? Resurrecting Nimrod? Whose aims? And who is this Nimrod you speak of?
Which I totally believe, given this Babylonian magic theme of the occult and their rituals, it all correlates right there. And because I'm not, like I said, like a plastic bag flowing through the wind, and I'm now aware of history, and I believe in God, and obviously, these people are satanic. It gives new meaning to this sort of military cult, because that is also a corollary that I have built. It's like constantly the military. So much involvement, even in the Charlie Kirk story, like just everywhere. I said I don't know when Turning Point just became a literal military operation, but indeed it did.
So that's it. When do you think it became one? 2 months before Charlie was dead? The day he died? 6 months? This is very important because you didn't just find out 3 weeks ago when you met with Erica Kirk, right? Why did you meet with Erica Kirk then? You guys came to some sort of agreement. There's, you backed off on some of your shit. You were trying, and you could say you were trying to gather truth or information, but that wasn't it, right? Because why didn't you say this, earlier? Like, why didn't you go after Erica Kirk earlier? Okay, she was grieving, but we knew she was lying back then. If you didn't believe the passport story, you were like, well, I was young. When I that stupid passport, I just accepted it because I was young and naive. All right, good. That's legitimate. But then now you're not, and you could look at Erica Kirk and see that she was fucked, and you didn't like her in the first place. I mean, her fake grieving and all that shit, right? And so if it was a military operation while Charlie Kirk was alive, which you're obviously alluding to, like you don't know when it happened, but it just didn't happen recently. There's nothing to see here, right? There's nothing here, right? Because it doesn't matter anymore. It's no longer a thing, right? Because the reality of it is that, she just did one of these videos I didn't show you. I just sort of scanned through it. She was talking about how maybe there's a new message that was saying that Charlie wanted to bring her to AmFest, this recent AmFest they had. And there was another, exchange where he said he wanted to bring Candace back. So, this was about them choosing Israel over Candace, right? Their shekels over Candace. And now that he was breaking away from Israel, he was wanting to bring her back, which is, was maybe a positive step, but what kind of friend is that, right? That he chose Israel, and because his business was more important than their relationship, even though they came up together, all that stuff that happened, he kicked her to the curb because his handlers told him to do so because he couldn't, he was getting shekels to promote Israel, and she was starting to be critical of Israel. And so Charlie wasn't a good guy. Remember, she said he saved his soul by doing this at the end, where he was finally, not because he gave a shit about the poor Palestinian children and these people suffering in this country, that he was shilling for Israel and gaslighting these college students and telling them it was okay. It wasn't like he felt like he had this moment, realized he was a fucking Judas, and he was betraying his country, he was betraying Christianity, he was betraying his viewers and his followers. It wasn't like he had a moment like that. He just saw he was losing his audience, and that Israel was asking too much of him, even though they were given not too much of him, because they were given hundreds of millions of dollars in shekels, right? But that makes him a piece of shit. And the whole premise is they were such good friends. She just really wants to find the truth about her friend who stabbed her in the back and Judas did her over Israel, which, is obviously the case. And he had created this piece of shit organization that's militarized that she still wanted to be a part of. She was still looking for some shine from them, right? And that she got excluded again by Erica and them. And this is about that more than about her seeking the truth. Not at all about her seeking the truth. And also she has to keep her fans going. So she got to bring in bullshit Mitch Snow and this other stuff that she does, that she's backed away from for the most part, because the guy's a lying piece of shit, that whole fucking, after I'm done with this, we'll run the Mitch Snow meme. And so that's all there is here, right? It's just bullshit, right? It's not real. It's not sincere. She's lying to her audience, and she sensationalized things. She's the worst kind of truther, right? A person who dabbles with things when it's best for her show. She thinks about her show before she thinks about the truth. She thinks about how she could, keep her audience going, and she's losing them, not as quickly as she should. And she should be like, the same thing that's happened to TPUSK should happen to her. Like her being exposed as a lying piece of shit that's not a truther, and that all the people that are following her are not, they're just dumb fucks who are getting to the party late. All right, so let's move on from here. Let me show you that Mitch Snow meme here.
But then I said to myself, this man has lived through so much. You know what I mean? This man has lived through so much.
My wife neglects us, ignores us, and then screams at us on Saturday mornings.
And I would be turning my back on this, really a hero.
I didn't give you an asshole answer. I gave you a smartass answer. It's Saturday morning, and it's okay to be a smartass.
Discovering the cartels.
I have no idea where the keys are. Would love to know.
Who's lived through so much and has been treated like the government. And then I struggled with my own soul going, I'm turning my back on him because I'm afraid.
Touch that Mustang. Stop it!
Touched it.
Of backlash for allowing him to tell the truth.
You want to video record shit?
And my soul was in conflict. And I decided that, you know what? This is not my platform, okay? I genuinely believe this is God's platform. I am a conduit. I don't know why I have a platform.
You want to threaten to hit my car with a hammer? God damn it! Marriage over, bitch. Goodbye.
And I don't know why you have this luck in life.
And she lured me in there and attacked me. Hit me with a hammer and, break my thumbs, my feet, back of my skull.
I really don't. I don't know why these things happen to you or why they happen to me.
Yeah, she took my keys, she took my phone, she went back inside and forced me to go back in and find out what was going on. Lures me to the garage that she pre-set up to be like a little prison.
But I know that my prayer was very intentional that night.
Then you stop it!
That I received that email. So I'm going to allow the internet to hear your testimony, hear what you think.
You know what? Do it all you want. Go ahead.
I don't want to. I want you to fucking start treating me better than you treat this car.
Everyone's like, what does this have to do with Fort Huachuca? Can Suge Knight see Brian Harpole at a military base? Like, do I care about Suge Knight's history? What does this have to do with anything? This is just illogical.
But that's not what we were doing today. But you have to do this. You have to don't defend
ask you a
yourself
question.
now.
I can defend myself all I want because you're being insane.
Ally with me, and I know how much you are already going through fighting them. and I intend to help you raise money
What is so bad about being a smartass?
To go through these lawsuits with the federal government. I know this is not easy. I know what your kid has been through. I know what your wife has been through.
Mess with your car. I haven't touched this car in forever.
And no one should have to go through this because they told the truth.
Yeah, I've never done crap like that, Mitch.
Yeah. That's the thing. You do it all the fucking time.
No.
That's what you do.
You just beat our door in with a hammer.
Why are you videotaping me?
Why are you acting crazy? You want me to let you in and that's what you do?
And potentially stumbled upon something corrupt, did definitively stumble upon something corrupt. And I think the public will be with you because...
Yeah. So, she did that. And eventually I was hearing my son cry. I was worried about him, having her maul him with the dogs.
Okay, just to finish this up here.
Military operation, but indeed it did. All these people with very strong ties to the military, his wife included, right? Her mother in particular. I want to speak about Erica's alibi on September 10th. And I'm going to put it out there that I do not believe it. I do not believe we are being told the truth regarding her alibi. I have, at least I can say, I guess the best way to say it is, I now officially have some serious questions.
Oh, you have serious questions now? Not the silly questions, and certainly not the questions, but not all that serious, but very serious, or serious, not very serious.
Pertaining to her alibi. And these question marks are really regarding her mother.
Her mother. It's about her mom. Fucking her mom. Fucking military mom.
Lori Franzvey.
Lori Franzvey. The one who's, supposedly dying and sick and she's taken care of.
I have been working through Erica's life. And
I've been deep diving. Fuck that 9/11 stuff. Let's get into Erica J. Kirk, who's, like 3 months too late.
You start to do that.
Candace, too late. Candace, late to the party. Owens.
Build a timeline. It inevitably leads you to her mother, who I believe is very shady. She's
shady, but she's now hooked up to all these machines.
A number of LLCs, and when I say a number, I mean it's almost incalculable, the amount of LLCs trying to figure out what exactly this does, the technology, connections from...
Right, so that's, it's just going down this thing. Revealing nothing, right? No Fort Huachuca, that's done with, right? I mean, I guess her alibi would have to be, well, if she wasn't there, she had to be at Fort Huachuca. She's not mentioned in Mitch. I don't know if she mentions Fort Huachuca. We'll see real quickly here. If she doesn't, I'll just move on to Bill Gates has now issued a statement. Okay, so then she does mention Fort Huachuca 3 times here.
Everything else put into this timeline, and these things again are verifiable. Again, that Erica says that she made Charlie dinner. That has been the alibi for Fort Huachuca. I have questions about that.
She does. She's serious questions. She didn't make dinner, that bitch. She didn't know how to cook. She's a beauty queen.
I have a lot of questions about that particular timeline and whether or not she was indeed at home making him dinner.
So here it says right here, Fort Huachuca, early morning meeting with Brian Harpool is allegedly seen, by a non-credible witness. Now, her alibi could crumble, and that doesn't mean she was at Fort Huachuca. And if she was at Fort Huachuca, it doesn't mean that they were planning Charlie's assassination. And even if they were, you're never going to find out, right? You're not going to get into it. It's not going to come out, right? There's never going to be an official story or a news story or anything that's accepted by the American people, just like with 9/11. See, what 9/11 said was, if you didn't believe in the official story of 9/11, then there was only one reasonable explanation. There's 2. One, somebody attacked us, and we didn't want to say who. And we didn't want to get back at them, so we made up a bullshit story. But the more likely story would be we attacked ourselves, killed our own citizens, blew up these buildings. I just discussed this in my video about it, about how when they built these giant skyscrapers, they don't have an exit strategy for them. Like, they built them, but there's no way to take them down. They create an environmental hazard with all the toxic shit that's in a building. And when you collapse that building, the dust goes everywhere. It wrecks the rest of the city around it. I mean, the walls of the walls of the other buildings, it gets into all the air ducts. I mean, you saw the dust that came up, right? When they nuked those buildings. And so, and the controlled demolition isn't really built for, the building 7's much taller. It's a third taller than the tallest building ever took down by controlled demolition. So I covered this extensively, right? That they have an environmental problem. When they take down one of these buildings, they basically have to evacuate the whole city for like days, even weeks before the dust settles. And then they got to clean it all up, right? Like, it's a mess. They're not, these buildings, all that cement dust is fucking a carcinogen and all the shit that's in there. And so, it's just a mess. It's not doable. And so you have these cities with these buildings that, they really can't take down. And they're, invaluable property. And when they start to collapse, they start to be condemned. I mean, these cities are all going to collapse all over the world because they can't really take these buildings down and rebuild them. So they'll just turn into these, low rent like Manhattan, and these, these expensive areas will just be, run down slums where, only people who are marginalized will be able to live there because of the, toxic nature and the unstable nature of these condemned buildings, right? And so, in all that, they're never going to admit that the government killed its own people. Like, they can't fucking do that, for a political agenda. And that the Democrats and Republicans and the media all went along with it. They can't do that. They'll never do that. Maybe, 100 years from now. But even then, like, it's just something they don't want out there as an idea that the government will sacrifice its own people like they did in Israel on, October 7th for a, military agenda, world agenda, political agenda, that they'll kill their own citizens for political gain. This happened. They were going to kill the Princess Bride and put her on the steps of Gildar, I believe is the name of the place, to make it look like Gildar killed the princess so they could rally the people to go fight a war, right? And so people don't want to fight wars, but if you take down a building in the middle of New York City, they will. They signed on for all those bullshit wars, right? And so they're never going to admit to that. So this is just a stupid thing. Like, it's just, and Mitch Snow she doesn't list Mitch Snow here. Brian Harpole is allegedly seen at the same time at the Commander Summit here, right? So it doesn't say anything about Mitch Snow here, right? Her alibi, and this timeline that she's creating, Candace. The way that she brings these dumb fucks in, making this look like it's official.
It is pointing to the possibility that Erica was just not there on the 8th at all. And the way in which her mother was again used to sort of guilt us away from asking questions. When I was asking her for Huachuco, she's with her mom, until she then popped up, which she wouldn't have had this happen. And then I texted and I said, you told me that she's like not available at all because she's with her mom and her mom's like in a hospital, but she's actually at a basketball game because a fan caught Erica at a basketball game. And then it was like, oh, yeah. Was it a football game, Skylar? A football game. And then it was like, oh, okay. You've been asking for this Fort Huachuca thing, blah, blah, blah. And then they gave me something that I didn't ask for. Maybe I wasn't clear. But across weeks, I'm just trying to get a basic alibi for.
And if she was at a place that she shouldn't be, and she doesn't want to say, that doesn't mean she's at Fort Huachuca, right? This is not what she's telling you. Like, she should admit that her usage of Mitch Snow has created, a total lack of credibility for her, because she should have never used him as like so-called legitimate fucking source. I mean, he's we've seen that she's disappeared, the guy. Like, where's Mitch Snow coming back? Are you going to bring him back on? She knows she's embarrassed by that shit, right? She doesn't want people to see that shit. They should want to bring that up. So she has no credibility either, because they're all lying bitches, right? So this is what I'm talking about. Like it's, like she's doing this as a performance using truther narratives to bolster her own, view count and her own, popularity and her own, show. And she needs bombshell shit all the time, sensationalistic stuff, but none of it's real because she's not going about it for the right reasons. And she's got a Catholic Church problem and the people that she associates a Michael Jackson problem and, all these things that, those guys were the innocent ones, right? All these friends of hers and things that she associates, and Charlie Kirk, who's a piece of shit, right? And so, this is what now is passing for truther stuff. And this is the stuff that's sucking up all the energy, why they just diminish the, the real truthers that are still left. And it's a dying breed. All right, let's move on to Bill Gates here. Okay, Bill Gates has responded. We got our water fixed, so I'm just really psyched. They came in. It took them about probably an hour and a half to dig it up with a backhoe and fix it. They capped off the well, so it's not the water running into that, whatever. And so it's just great because we were having to walk up and down stairs from the basement, which is not they're not good stairs. It's they're short stairs and it's just unpleasant. And just turning the water on and off in spots and just anyways, really makes you appreciate the water. The situation we have now. And so this person writes, every minute I spent with him, this is what Bill Gates said. Every minute I spent with him, I regret and I apologize that I did. Foolish to spend time with him is one of many people who regret ever knowing. One of the many people who regret ever knowing. The more that comes out, the more clear it will be, although the time was a mistake. It has nothing to do with with that kind of behavior. You're a piece of shit, right? You've always been a piece of shit. And guys who hang out with Jeffrey Epstein are, these philanthropists that just want to make the world a better place and are using their $1 billion to do it. He's a greedy, selfish prick. And whatever he was doing with his Bill Gates Foundation, it was to enrich himself and do whatever dastardly deeds he was, meant to do. All right, so I'm going to wrap that part up here. There's Nancy Guthrie's alien health flagged by police at 9/11 dispatch. I'm not covering the Nancy Guthrie thing, but, there we go. There's Melinda Gates. All right, so let me see if there's any comments we're talking about here. There's one I definitely wanted to get to, so let me find that one, and then I'll go and read the rest of the comments, and then I'll wrap this video up. Okay, so there's a guy I call the Dodgy Truther. He's someone who does my meditation. I met him briefly, I think, in India, and his wife. I was talking to his wife a little bit. Me and my son were staying at the hotel during a gathering. And I was Facebook friends with them, but I didn't really know them. And then he contacted me because he realizes that Dodgy was a piece of shit, and he's one of the few people posting things on social media. And he's kind of, so I call him the Dodgy Truther. And Dodgy has a relationship with Deepak Chopra, clout chasing. I think they've paid Deepak Chopra to endorse Dodgy's books, and he's a real piece of shit too, these guys. And I don't know if this is true or not, but he sent me this. They're getting the Epstein files all the way over in India. Deepak Chopra, a highly popular Indian author, speaker known for popularizing ideas about mindfulness, meditation, spirituality, and mind-body healing. His name appears 3,300 times in the Epstein files. And he said, God is a construct. You girls are real. He wrote to Epstein in one email. So this guy's just really sleazy. He's really greasy. And, so that, right? So in terms of the audio, at the beginning of the video where I talk about all those things to do with, it's a spiritual solution, which I always say. But it's pointless. Like you just see, it's just pointless because nothing ever happens. Like nothing ever changes. Like it just keeps on going, getting worse. More depraved, more stupid, more entitled, right? Like, just people are getting worse and worse. And there's only one solution, and that is we need to have a new system and a new orientation to life and pretty much change everything. We need to, have a complete collapse and then build something back, but not from a place of complete, chaos and Cro-Magnon man kind of shit going on. And so, but anyways, let me find this one comment here. Okay, here's what the person's, I think, a regular viewer. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So this is Don Lemons. Looks like he's told he was going to prison, and Trump and Elon Epstein. I'm not sure where the what I talked about here must have been Old Testament stuff. It's probably foreskin. I talked about Jesus talking about foreskins. I've been reading a bit of the Gnostic text, and I came across a quote about Jesus' stance on foreskins yesterday. From the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus was asked by his disciple, does circumcision, these are Nag Hammadi texts that somebody found in the middle of the desert, which, may or may not be real. I mean, it's, it seems like it could be, but, from the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus was asked by his disciples, does circumcision have any practical value? He said, if it were useful, their father would beget them already circumcised from their mother. Rather, the true circumcision of the Spirit has become profitable in every way. He said, rather, the true circumcision in spirit has become profitable in every other way. Just interesting, I saw that quote after finishing the last video. Thanks, Paul. So, hopefully that is true, and Jesus was telling the truth to his disciples, and that means that would negate the whole Old Testament and all its bullshit, that Jesus wasn't buying into that religious shit. Of course he wasn't, because he became spiritual, like he became a spiritual person, and so the Old Testament you'd have to leave behind because it's just worthless. Okay, so not so many more comments. The Dodgy Truthers just sent me that thing with the Deepak Chopra thing. It just shows you how fucked up everything is, right? Deepak Chopra, the whole thing. Let's see where the other comments here are. Is this the only comment I have? One person said, first they said, Candace is pretty great. And then they decided to leave a second comment. Wow, man, you are contradictory. Me, I'm the one that's contradictory, not Candace Owens. And this is to the one, Erica Crowley Franze is back crazier than ever. And then the truth comes with consequences. Not that she was calling all these people evil and devil worshippers, and then she's joining the Catholic Church. That's not contradictory. And, if you believe in Candace Owens is great, then you're not going to understand what I'm saying. Like, you don't have the comprehension ability to understand what I say here. Like, if you think Candace Owens is great and you can't see through some of the shit yourself, like, it's just me pointing out things that you already know and can see. That's the kind of people who could watch my videos, right? People who see the kind of same things I do. And, I just maybe articulate it a different way or, more insightful in different ways. But, or pointing out things that they didn't see, but once I point it out, it's obvious to them. But if you think Candace Owens is great, then how the fuck you understand anything that I present here? Like, you just wouldn't. Like, it must confuse the shit out of you. Like when, the nidiocracy, when anybody starts using big words, they call them the F word, right? The derogatory slur to gay men because, I saw this thing. Somebody sent me a meme yesterday, and it shows a historical figure, not a good one. One of the bad ones, that one. And the person says, told you, which I don't endorse it, but it's funny. It's a good meme. Told you. And so you guys probably know what I'm talking about there. And then this one, I told my mom about how you say TPUS gay, and we both say it now. That's one of my better ones, TPUS gay, and what was the other thing I was saying? Instagool. Those are the two, really good names. Like, like I've made the name more appropriate and better. Like they should just change their name to TPUSK. And Instagle should change their name to Instagle. Like, they won't because it's, derogatory, but it just fits, it suits. It's a better name. Like, it's like, it's like you were named something, I don't know, and somebody comes up with a nickname that's actually better and the nickname sticks and everyone calls you that nickname because that's your real name. Like, it's not, your initial name might be okay. It might be appropriate. Your name your parents gave you. But then the nickname comes around and the nickname just fits better because it's, it's more indicative of who you are. So I guess that's it. I'll wrap this one up here and I'll start making stuff tomorrow. I just got someone just sent me a wonderful video of Alex Jones, which I'm sure I'll be doing an imitation of and all of that. But it's what I'm probably most likely starting my next video with. And now I'll probably have to bring in my meme about him liking dongs because it goes with that. All right, so that's it for this one. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pouring from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.